Harris.
And I'm Elisa Bokeen, and we are two brown chicks changing the face of therapy on both sides of the couch. I felt like an extra long couch today. Couch!
Oh, goodness. All right, so today.
And I didn't even have coffee.
I know, look at that.
Look at that.
Energy
It's
with
that
no
green smoothie.
It's giving you like green.
Yes.
You need to turn that off, is that good?
Yes. Okay, today we're joined by Rozella White.
The lovely.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Rozella White. Okay.
Yes. Hazy.
Ivy.
Yes.
Yes. And you are a speaker, a coach, and we get to talk about relationships, which is always great.
Always so good.
Like
my favorite topic.
Yeah, us too. So hopefully we won't, be on here for 2 hours. Because
we can talk about
it. We can do it. But before we get started, we always want to know, just kind of tell us what you do, what's your company, and how you're working
to change the face of therapy in minority communities. Yes.
Yeah, so my name is Rozella White, and I am the owner of RHW Consulting, which stands for Restoring Hearts to Wholeness.
Oh, I love it. I love an acronym. Look at you.
Yes, I love making the things connect like that.
Yes.
And I provide spiritual life coaching, leadership coaching, inspirational speaking, and I'm a writer. And I also do women's retreats, so small retreats for women of diverse backgrounds to get together to restore their heart to wholeness.
Awesome. I love it.
That's awesome.
And yeah, so I am someone who, on the other side of therapy, was in therapy for a very long time. I'm still in therapy. Live with major depressive disorder and generalized anxiety disorder with a touch of ADHD.
Okay, mix it up.
Yes. And was actually began my journey blogging about it in 2011. And so I blogged for a long time on embracing my shadow. And my goal was really to talk about mental health in ways that also connect the faith or spiritual aspect, because so many places at that point, it's amazing how fast things have changed.
Right.
Like we've been wanting things to change when it comes to decreasing stigma about mental health, especially in communities of color. Because in 2011, there were not those many people or organizations that were writing about it and talking about it. And if they were, they were not necessarily bringing in or talking about faith and connection, because faith has a lot of times been more harmful than helpful. So yeah.
How do we keep both, right? Like how, you can go to church, you can go to temple, you can do all those things and see a therapist. And that's really a lot of what you talk about.
Absolutely. I believe if the Creator gave us gifts, then one of those gifts was to create modalities and methodologies to help people in therapy, and also created science so that we have medicine and drugs and all of those things that help us cope and live. So I'm a firm believer in that.
Yes.
You just mentioned something that I'm just curious if you could talk a little bit more about the faith harming, and that's why it's been separated for so long, or it's like one or the other, because it's kind of like the fear of my assumption is like there's a little bit of fear of like, you shouldn't be going out to get this help. You should be, staying here.
It should be enough.
Yes. And so what are your thoughts on that, on faith possibly doing some damage when it comes to like mental health and things like that?
I have so many thoughts.
Get ready.
Okay.
Well, because I often say so I am Christian, and I say that I'm really only Christian because of one thing, and it's this idea of God becoming human. But I am very much a lover of all religious traditions, anything that speaks or sparks creativity, that looks for liberation, that talks about sustaining us holistically, I'm here for. I just happen to be a part of the Christian family. But for so long, the ways that people have talked about faith has been more for faith to be a controlling thing versus a liberative thing, right? Something that allows people to fully explore all of who they are, to live with their doubts, to live with their questions, to wonder about what could be. And I think because faith and religion have been used to control, then anything that falls outside of the controlling box, right, is considered to be other,
Yeah.
anti, or even at the worst demonic,
Right.
which is very problematic.
Yes.
Right.
Because I don't believe that God would give us all that God has given us, or the creator of the universe, with all the beautiful creativity that we have, if we weren't to be curious, or if we
Right.
weren't supposed to connect and to learn about other ways of being and doing. So
Yeah.
for me, like it all seamlessly fits together,
Yeah.
even though for so many, the messages they've been taught were so harmful.
Right.
And I empathize with that, and I understand that, and hope to provide another way of thinking about it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And knowing, Ebony and I say all the time, there's so many paths to healing.
Yes.
Because we have so many differences with what resonates with me may not resonate
Right.
with Ebony, and you know,
Mhm.
and so I love what you're saying, because there's diversity in healing, because there's diversity in pain,
Right.
Like in our
Yes.
wounding,
Right.
Yes.
and we don't all need or gravitate towards the same.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
I love the idea of finding the freedom in faith, though, because I do think that it has been restrictive for a lot of
Yes.
people. And so being able to say, like, you can live this free and full life and still have your faith is amazing. Because I don't think people look
That's
at
your next book, Finding Freedom and Faith.
Well, look, it's funny because the first chapter of my book talks a lot about the type of Christian I am
Mhm.
and the type of Christian I'm not, to give people hopefully a
Understand
wider
that.
view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because for so long, because it was supposed to be controlling and oppressive, then we were taught not to trust our gut, our inner
Right.
wisdom,
Absolutely.
right? We were not to trust feelings are bad, right? Like,
Mhm.
and I just reject all of that,
Mhm.
you know, and I think as people find healing, as I've found healing, because everything that I talk about and do is something that I've practiced
Mhm.
or engaged myself.
Mhm.
And as I found healing, one of the best things has been to strengthen or to listen more deeply to my inner voice of wisdom,
Yeah.
to
Right.
be in communion with my higher power in ways that affirm the
Mhm.
thoughts and feelings that I'm having. And as I get healthier, right, I'm able to discern between the thoughts and what is a thought that is specifically connected to my pain or the place that I'm in, and what is a
Mhm.
thought that's supposed to bring life and give life. And so
Ooh, I love it. I love
Good
it.
stuff. Good
Yeah,
stuff.
absolutely, because that's really, when you're working in therapy, a lot of times people will say, well, I can just talk to my friends about it. But a good therapist, what they're offering you is a process for you to develop that intuition,
Yes.
for you to develop
Yes.
that self-awareness, to where you don't feel, I mean, we always are, I think it's always wise that we seek counsel at different times.
Right.
But I think a lot of times, you know, you're sitting there like, oh, I knew it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I knew it and I didn't trust that. So that's what a
Yep.
good therapist will do, is help you to have the process to further develop that.
Yes,
And
and
trust
helping
you.
you to reflect, right?
Mhm.
Because I think one of the things that we miss out in our culture is the time to reflect.
Yeah.
Reflection is not seen as work.
Right.
And I think that is the most powerful work we can do, is to look back over our lives, over our stories, to look at the patterns, to look at the repeating beliefs and behaviors, and start to mine that or excavate that for some
Yeah.
meaning.
I
So
love that. Yes.
Yes, definitely. So you mentioned your book. You have a
Yes.
book coming out.
I do.
You're author Rozella White there. Right? Thank you.
Oh my gosh, it's been the hardest thing ever.
I am sure.
Like, it was a therapeutic process in and of itself.
Okay. Okay.
What was the inspiration behind it?
So relationships and
Mhm,
love,
mhm.
and so I often say that the very things that I was teased about or told was a little too much and I needed to put to the side have become the very same things that are now my superpowers.
Amen.
Right? So I was a very sensitive child. I am a
Mhm.
very sensitive adult. And I didn't recognize then like what empathy was and what that meant, and that those were some of the gifts that I have. And also I've been enamored with love my entire life.
Mhm.
And not just romantic love. People think because I'm writing a book about relationships, it's just like intimate relationships,
Mhm.
romantic or erotic relationships. But I'm just fascinated with love in relationships across the board.
Mhm.
And as someone who's from an interesting family, like many of us are, right? With the
Interesting. Our
diversity
families
of
are
relationships,
interesting. Yes.
right?
Right.
Kind of going through my own journey and healing of reconciling with my father, of finding who I was separate and apart from who my mom is and was, or who my mom is, thinking about all of these different relationships and what love looks like in a particular way.
Mhm.
So on one hand, it's love and relationships, and on the other hand, it goes back to me to my faith. So the inspiration was, what does it look like to imagine God as lover? Because a lot of times we imagine God as like vengeful figure, as father or parent, generally all masculine terms, which is a whole other conversation. But what does it look like to imagine God, if God is love, God as lover? And then because I'm a Christian, I believe in this way of God's being called the Trinity. So God existing in like 3 different ways, which I don't understand, and I have a whole degree in religion. Like, it's one of those things where I've never been one that I need to prove it, right? Okay. But I want to learn from what it holds. And in that relationship, in the Trinity, God shows us what love is and what love does. And so God creates, you know, through the person of Jesus, God liberates, and through the Holy Spirit, God sustains us. And so for me, that became the marker for, love exists where these things exist. So it's a particular type of love. It's a particular type of relationship, which I call revolutionary.
So tell people what you mean by God is lover. Because, you know, you got people like, what's she talking about? God is lover.
Yeah. Well,
yes,
and, right?
Let people, because I love, so yes, break it down what you mean. Because I think in terms of spirituality, love, lovers, it for so many it feels like it has to be this separate but tell them what you mean by that.
Well, I mean exactly what it sounds like, and some, right? So not just thinking, we always think about lover as just either the sexual, or the physical, and I think that there's some of that. I mean, like, God breathed into us, God created us, God took like material from one being to another to create, and this whole thing happened that, again, I don't always understand, but that's the way of faith. You don't have to know it to be true to believe it. And so when I think about being in a loving relationship or being with a lover, there are things, especially healthy, right? And like,
keyword.
Like healthy, reciprocal, mutual, right? But there are things that happen. There are feelings that I feel, right? So there's a level of respect. There's a level of excitement and joy. There's a level of a desire to be for the person and not having to be anyone other than who I am in a healthy relationship. And when I think about my relationship with God, those things are there too, right? There's a level of wanting to show up as my most authentic self, trusting that this God sees all of me. There is a way of being that is joyful, right? For me, when I think about a lover, I think about joy. Like, those two things go hand in hand. And again, that's a different way of thinking about God. We don't think about God as this joyful entity.
Right. Many people don't.
Like, when you think about creation, God has a sense of humor. When you look at the diversity of human bodies and of animals and of insects, like, there's some things that are just hysterical. And so to kind of recapture those characteristics of God and connect it to the characteristics of our lovers in our life, but then also the people that we are in love with. And again, for me, that spans, that goes beyond just intimate. Well, I can't even say intimate because all my relationships are intimate. But that goes beyond sexual, romantic relationships, right?
Got it.
So I feel like with my relationships with my closest friends, my female friends, there is this lover-like engagement separate and apart from sex. Right. And some of that comes also from my womanist theological lens of like, I love women, I love men, and it's not just sexual, but it is joyful, it is creative, it is liberative, and we find freedom in that. So I know it's a stretch for some people, and like for me, it feels right. It feels true, and so that's what I'm going with.
I love it.
But I just feel like it makes sense when you think of this entity of God and God being a part of everything, a part of you, a part of just, it would make sense that means God is everything, right? I don't know if that just
And God is in everything.
Is in everything, right?
And like, I think there are 2 biggest lies that we're told. One is that there's not enough, so the lie of scarcity.
Right.
But the other is that we are supposed to be compartmentalized beings, right? So part of my wholeness work is helping people say or figure out who you are, what it is you value, and how those things show up in every place that you find yourself.
Absolutely.
Because and y'all know this, so many people are living like disintegrated lives, and that leads to so much more pain and disconnection. And again, going back to God and the Trinity, God is all mashed up, right? It's like the both and in ways that I don't always understand, but I feel like there's something to be learned from that? What does it mean to be fully integrated and fully whole? So.
It just really sounds like your spirituality, your faith, your understanding of this power greater than ourselves, which some people refer to as God, some the universe, nature, whatever you want to call it, that has really set the tone for, and I'm assuming, so you can tell, but it has set the tone for how you've healed.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like this idea that all of these parts of me have to be integrated within my healing, which is so important. You know, we say that all the time. It's you might get some from here and you might get some from there, but addressing all the parts of us is so important. It has to be holistic in the healing process.
Well, and that's when I was coming up with my blog, and I haven't written on it for years, but it was a good 3 years when I was writing on embracing my shadow. I think Debbie Ford was who I got that phrase from, but this notion that I started to find healing when I started to embrace this thing that I really was mad about and that I didn't understand and that I couldn't control. But when I said, I'm going to embrace this side of myself and seek out healing and recognize that this is a part of who I am. And in some respects, it actually adds to my experience in a lot of ways, because in my depressive moments, that adage of we see the light in the darkness, and there was something for me about those moments of deeply feeling that led me to feeling on the other side, because I feel like there is a correlation between how much we allow ourselves to feel on this end of pain, sadness, suffering, and then how much we can feel on this end of joy and love and laughter.
And compassion. Compassion for others.
And for self, right?
And for self,
because that's the thing that's always missing. And I think part of my book also deals with that. Like, how do we rework what we in my tradition call the greatest commandments? So the first one, love the Lord your God with your whole being. And then the second is to love your neighbor as yourself. And we always take off as yourself. And my question is, how do you love somebody or something as yourself if you don't love yourself?
Amen.
So.
Woo! Rozella's taking us to church this morning on a Wednesday.
So in my tradition, it's Holy Week. So,
That's true.
It works.
That's true. So I know you said that you call it a revolutionary relationship, and it's those three pieces. I can't think of the third one, but you said creation.
Creativity, liberation, and sustenance.
That's the one. Can you talk a little bit more about that, and how do you know if you're,
you cultivate
most of us, are missing it? So how do we create that?
Right. Well, they're markers for it too. So I feel like the two kind of framing pieces are, if you're, the first one is that a relationship has to be life-giving and not life-taking.
Yes, right? It has to feed you, not deplete you.
Right?
Yes.
Y'all. Life-giving.
Not
life-taking.
Life-taking.
Yeah.
That's a t-shirt.
Yeah. Oh, that's next on my list.
Yes.
But that's the first thing, right? So, and I think about that also with ourselves, because all of this, it's about others, but it always comes back to self.
Always comes back to
self. How am I in life-giving relationship with myself? How do I speak life over myself? How am my thoughts turn towards life-giving, like a life-giving reality over myself? Instead of those things that we would say to ourselves, but sometimes we'd never say to someone else, that take life. So there's that. There is a really good friend of mine who is a pastor here in the Houston area, Father Jacob Breeze with Holy Family. He talks about this thing that I love, and it's about covenant rather than commitment. And so that's another piece of it, right? And we're not perfect. We get all of this is like there's a margin of error because we're human, right? But these are what we strive to be. So in commitments a lot of times are based on what the other person does or doesn't do. And when we talk about covenant, going back again to my faith, when God makes a covenant with us, it doesn't matter what we do. And we are constantly fucking up, and God is constantly saying, I love you.
Right.
Like, you didn't get it. And there might be consequences, but I'm still going to do the things that I promised. And so part of that also is when a relationship is healthy, it's steeped in this covenant way of being.
So pause, because that's the preface.
When a relationship is healthy.
When a relationship is healthy, not like I'm in it no matter what.
No.
Right. When a relationship is healthy.
Yes. Right. And for me, the marker of that is life-giving, not life-taking. Right. Creative, liberative, and sustaining.
Yes.
Right? So that has to be the framework, because all of this stuff people could use and it would be very dangerous.
Yes, and they have.
Yes.
And that's why many people stay in relationships. I think particularly women, where it's like, well, I made this commitment, or, you know, this is what I'm supposed to do, and till death do us part, or unconditional. And it's when it's healthy, and it's giving you life, not taking your life little by little, then this applies. Then that's the formula.
Yeah, and I'm a divorcee, so some of this is like, oh, this is what was happening or wasn't happening in my relationship. In my relationship, my ex, it wasn't a violent relationship, but there were still these aspects of it that it was not life-giving, right? There was not some reciprocity in some ways. And also, I just didn't know myself. I got married really young, and so that was a struggle. But, so you have that, right? Again, the healthy framework, life-giving, not life-taking, based in covenant versus commitment.
I love it.
And then there are markers, and I'm not going to know if I remember all of them, but their revolutionary relationships are forgiving, they're gracious, they're vulnerable, they hold each other accountable, right? And there's a sense of equity in this, because the other thing is that, especially in romantic relationships, especially in cisgendered heteronormative relationships, right, there is often this hierarchy, and I think in any relationship it's not about hierarchy, it's about equity and equality, and so to be able to hold each other accountable is a big deal. So those are some of the markers.
Equity is a big one.
Huge.
Equity, people, right? Mutually reciprocating relationships.
Yes.
This is so good.
Well, I'm obsessed with this covenant over
commitment.
Just because it's so much. A lot of the conversations when working with couples is about these expectations of the other person. Like, well, they should, if they're not doing this, then I'm not doing that, and those things. And you know, like you said, in a healthy relationship, it's important, but it's also just in general in any relationship. Like, you should not be only doing to receive. It should be I love you, and I'm going to love you in whatever manner I do because I love you, and that's because I choose to love.
And this goes back as God as lover, right? For me, it connects, because in that we see like God constantly showing up in that way. And what does it look like if we're in a healthy relationship and we're operating from that way of being? And the other person is operating from that way of being? Everybody's needs are met above and beyond what you can first imagine. But we're all broken, right? And we don't necessarily enter into relationships either healed or working through our healing. And so then it becomes an issue.
Right.
I love it. This is better than coffee.
I'm still going. There's a cafe around the corner. I'm still going to go get that.
Get your
So you talked a lot about your depression and your anxiety that you struggle with. I don't want to say yours because it's not yours, but you know, with depression and anxiety. Can you say what practice or tool has really helped you with your journey?
My medication.
Amen.
That's amazing.
Amen.
I was on Prozac for about 5 years and then switched over to Lexapro, and after some tweaking, that has worked for me.
Wonderful.
And it was like, I always say, it's like the fog lifting of like when things kicked in, it was like, this is
life.
what it feels like to not have these particular feelings or this weight on me. When I am healthiest, movement. So I'm getting back into that, because the last few years between work and moving and travel, it's just been harder. But definitely movement helped me. I mean, it's like one of those things I get mad about. Like, I used to be an athlete, then I wasn't, and now I'm trying to get back involved in things. But the endorphins are real. It actually does make me feel better. And I think, like, my community, the people in my life, one of the things that I have a tendency to do is when I'm struggling or when I'm discerning about a move or an endeavor, I literally reach out to the folks in my life and say, could you be praying with me about this? And if you think of any image, any song, any story that comes to mind in that time, send it to me.
Oh, I love that.
Oh my gosh. And
I'm going to use that.
It is incredible, right?
I love that.
Again, from your friends that are healthy, that have your best interest at heart.
Not your girlfriends that want you to leave them right away.
No, but like people send, my friends are just, my group, my people are just incredible. And I know that I couldn't do what I do without them, without my immediate family, without my I call them my soul sisters, this amazing tribe of women that I'm in a relationship with. And then self-care that goes beyond the superficial.
Right.
Right? But this notion of falling in love with myself. Mm-hmm. And so my best friend and I, a few years ago, we decided to do the list, and I talk about this a little bit in the book, of like what we want in another person or what we're seeking in relationship.
Yeah.
And as we get older and more mature, I think our list changes. Yeah. It goes from the superficial to like
a little deeper.
You don't gotta be 6'5".
Right.
You could be 5'11".
We start to shift things. But this list was like, how do I want to feel in a relationship with someone? And what do I want that relationship to spark within me?
Oh, I love how do I want to feel?
Yes.
And what do I want it to... I'm using this.
Spark.
Yeah.
Well, but then we did a twist. We said, what if we did those things for ourselves?
Amen.
Right?
Yes.
So and again, I'm a woman. I'm for all intents and purposes, a heterosexual woman. Mm-hmm. For so much of my life, the trope has been that you need a person external to you to provide things for you. And if you don't have that, then you're not going to experience.
You're incomplete.
Something. Right. And so this has been a great journey because it's like, I'm going to take myself on a date and I want to feel joy and I want to go on an adventure and I want to feel safe and secure and I want to feel empowered. So how am I doing those things for myself?
Yeah.
Which is kind of fucking me up because now between my friends and myself,
I'm good.
No, but I still want it. Like, I still want a partner. I want those things. And I love men and I love the male energy but it's like,
I'm doing all right.
Really good.
So it's good.
Yeah,
it's good.
I love it. This is so good.
Yeah, this is good. I want you to tell people, I'm going to ask you about your favorite resource and book, but before that, I want you to tell people how do they sign up to like pre-order or...
Yes.
Okay.
Well, the book is available right now for pre-order everywhere that books are sold.
Okay.
So...
the name of it?
Yeah, it's called Love Big, The Power of Revolutionary Relationships to Heal the World. Wow. And my face is on it. But you can Amazon, Barnes & Noble. If you're an indie book person, you go to IndieBound, and then they would have links for where you could get it. And then my website is rozellahwhite.com. So if you wanted to sign up to get advanced information, I really try to take care of the people that have signed up to follow me and be a part of my community. And so I give out special treats and stuff. Please do that. But yeah, anywhere that books are sold. And then I'm posting a lot about the book with the Love Big hashtag. Mm-hmm. So it's Love Big Book. Love Big Book. Hashtag Love Big Book.
Okay. Are you doing any type of event or signing here in Houston?
Yes.
When?
So I'm doing 3 launch parties. And then I'll be doing a tour next fall and in the future. But Friday, May 10th. Okay. Friday, May 10th at Through Good Coffee in the Heights.
We'll
be doing our Houston launch party. And so more information will be available for that.
Yes.
It's like right around the corner.
Yes.
But the book comes out May 7th. And if you pre-order, you'll get the book. Especially if you pre-order on Amazon and you're a Prime member, you'll get the book on that Tuesday. You'll have it.
Okay.
So,
awesome.
Yeah. This is so exciting.
Yeah.
Love it.
Right. I'm excited.
Yes.
So outside of your book, what are your favorite like resources, podcasts, books?
Oh my gosh, so many things. So a book that I recommend to everyone is, especially clients that I work with. I do a lot of work with people that are in transition or trying to figure out their purpose or meaning at a particular stage in life. Mm-hmm. So Let Your Life Speak by Parker Palmer is a favorite. Okay. And I read that like every year. Like it's a little book and it just, there's so many gems. I love that. From a religious standpoint, I'm a huge Howard Thurman fan. Mm-hmm. And so he was instrumental in providing a spirituality that then the leaders in the civil rights movement used. So he was before or ahead of Martin Luther King Jr. and that crew, but that was who they were reading.
Okay.
And so he was probably one of the first modern Black contemplatives, right? And I just love that because there was so much mystery in his connection to his Christian faith. And so I love that. Podcasts, I'm a bit of a news junkie, so I listen to a lot of news podcasts. My best friend has a podcast called Luthercostal, and she is talking about like the journey. She started off as a Pentecostal and now is a pastor in the Lutheran church, but this journey from a very embodied spiritual experience with a theology that was oppressive to now a less embodied religious experience with a theology that was liberating. And so how do those two come together, especially when culture is at play and some other things?
Yeah.
So I love that. Oh my gosh, there's so much. I mean, I like therapy for Black girls. I listen to that. But anything, and I'm like a big like TED person.
Yeah.
So I love TED Radio Hour, TED Talks Daily, because my background is sociology and then religion was my graduate work. But I love finding the connections between things. Because I believe we live in interconnected lives. So all of those things have stuff to teach us.
Lots of homework, people.
Yes.
Oh, and if you're someone, so I have a couple of friends that are writers and they're incredible. So one is Austin Channing Brown, and she wrote last year her book, I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness. And it's incredible. And then my other friend, Nadia Bolz-Weber, she just came out with her 4th book, Shameless, and it's about a sexual reformation. And so letting go of all of the shit that purity culture and again, oppressive religion has told us about our bodies, about sex, about connection, and kind of reforming our ideology around that.
Awesome.
Man, my wish list just got
right. All of these.
I've got lots of stuff.
So what makes therapy dope?
There are not many spaces in our life where we get to stop and just spend time digging into our shit, right? Which can both be very terrifying,
right?
But with the right therapist, the right connection, it becomes such a liberating experience. And so I think that to take advantage of that space and that time, I think that's a ultimate revolutionary act of self-care.
Love it.
Right? To say that I am worth it enough to stop. Because at the end of the day, we tell ourselves all these things. I don't have time, I don't have resources. And I don't ever want to like downplay that you don't believe that those are true, but there's always a way.
There's options. Right?
And, you know, an hour, when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, an hour of your life, 45 minutes of your life, to just focus on you and to focus on you for the sake of healing and developing the sake of development. Yes. Because, and this goes to me back to like my faith. If I believe that I'm made in the image of God, and if I believe the divine dwells within, when I don't take care of that divine, then I'm saying something to God about what I really believe about God, right? Or what I believe about God's creation.
Right.
And so for me, it is a spiritual act to take care of self. So
that's awesome.
Therapy is a revolutionary act of self-care.
Yes.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes. I love it. I love
That's
it.
a mug.
Yes. That is. That's our next lead. We're going to credit.
That will be on Instagram.
Yes.
So tell us why you're dope.
Because God made me.
So many reasons listed today about why you're dope.
Because I think I'm dope because I invite people into sacred space that we co-create, and invite people to be vulnerable in ways that ultimately bring about their healing, because they're able to reflect deeply on who they are, on where they come from, on what they believe, on why they believe it, and then they're able to create a life that is meaningful and a life that represents freedom for them. So, and I know that that's a gift that I have.
That is
awesome.
That is dope.
That is very
Love it.
Yay. Thank you so much.
Yes, this was so wonderful.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Can you tell people, I know we have your website and all about the book, that'll be in the show notes. How do they follow you across social media?
Yeah, so Twitter and Instagram, it's Rozella HW, Rozella HW. Facebook, it's Rozella H White, at Rozella H White.
Okay.
And RozellaHWhite.com is my website, and I'm online a lot, so you can always connect, and I love to connect with folks.
Love it. Yay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank y'all.
She's typing all the notes.
Thank you so much for being here. Thanks everybody for watching and or listening. We appreciate you all. Make sure you follow Melanin and Mental Health across social media at Melanin and Mental Health, Melanin Health on Twitter, and go to melaninandmentalhealth.com to find you a dope therapist, a dope coach, a dope psychologist, whatever you're looking for, as well as if you want to check out our dope gear, you can find those over there as well.
Yeah, like our mugs.
Self-care is
I got
sexy.
Yeah,
I need some
Yes.
stuff.
All right, we will We'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.